I want to just officially welcome you to today's training, which is Beyond Orientation, Designing Onboarding that Connects, Inspires, and Builds a Culture from the Start. This is an interactive training, and what you're really going to do is learn how to reimagine onboarding as a powerful cultural strategy. And to do that, we have with us an incredible repeat trainer who's we've brought back to have this conversation. That would be Dan Comer. Dan Comer has more than 40 years of experience in the human services field and was one of the creators of the Principles of Partnership. Over the last 3 decades, Dan has traveled the country delivering training and coaching to human services staff on implementing alternative and differential response, change management, leadership, resiliency, and best practices in family engagement. And with that, we want to say welcome back, Dan. We are all looking forward to today's session.
I am so glad to be here. And so we had a lot of intro slides there, and I just wanted to keep mine included because it used to move, like you could see people moving and stuff, which was really cool, I thought. But anyhow, there will be a test at the end because you've had this title like 5, 6 times now, so you ought to have that memorized. So we'll check on that at the end. So I'm in a very curious place today, I will tell you that. When you attend a training like this or a webinar like this, what I've seen is that there tends to be people that, and it's not right or wrong, that they tend to talk and participate to think. You know, there are people that speak up right away. Sometimes they say, well, wait a minute, I didn't mean to think, I didn't mean to say that, because they're talking to think. And then there's people who think to talk. And I mean, I think this is a newer, more accurate, more neutral version of the introvert extrovert scale. And so I'm curious if thinking about your participation style in some training such as this today, which one of these are you? Do you think to talk, or do you talk to think? Just put that into chat, and I'm just kind of curious about what that looks like. And Haley or Jess, are we getting any themes?
We're getting quite a bit. It looks like we have a split decision here. We have quite a few think to talk, talk to think. Some people say it depends on their mood or the situation or the subject. Some are mixed.
That makes, okay, perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So this training, I got to be honest with you, this came out of working with some groups and organizations that, as it turned out, as I got to know them and work with them over time, that they really weren't taking advantage of the onboarding process in a way that could serve them. And it seemed to be pretty quite a lack, I think, of a lot of people just not taking advantage of them. And so that's where I really got the idea to do some research and put this together. What I found was a lot of organizations, their onboarding process was driven by, the DR function, and or they said, how they looked at onboarding was, let's just get through it, do what we have to do, and then we can get to work, right? And I think they just weren't taking advantage of what it had to offer. And so I'm hoping today inspires you truly to move beyond those kind of checklists about, have you read the policy on this? Have you read the policy about cleaning up after yourself in the kitchen? Watching those training videos. And instead, what I'm hoping it encourages you to do is to create onboarding that really fosters authentic connection right from the start, that it helps break down your onboarding process, helps to break down those departmental silos that we all suffer from, I'll say it that way. And it lays the foundation. Onboarding can lay the foundation. I think it should lay the foundation for a supportive inclusion culture that you want in the organization. Specifically, these are the objectives that we're going to really focus on today. To redefine onboarding as a more of a cultural and connection strategy. learn some practical ways to break down silos from day one, and look at some actions that we can take during onboarding, which build a supportive culture. So during this whole thing, I really tried, you'll tell me, I guess, later on, or your evaluations will tell me later on. I'm really trying to present a big overview of these objectives, but also I'm a pretty tangible guy, and so I'm going to really share some specific ideas as we go through this next bit of time together. So tell me later if I was successful in balancing those. You do play a part in this. You really do. This is your opportunity to learn from each other, to share your thoughts, to share your ideas. I'm not an expert on onboarding. I did a lot of research on it and I understand it to a pretty good degree. And there's thousands of ideas out there. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to respond to chat prompts. When I ask you to respond to a question in chat, there's 9 or 10 or 11 of them. So kind of loosen up, if you will. And a few times I'm going to be asking for spoken examples. I mean, if you have a story that really aligns with what we're talking about right then, I'll ask you to raise your hand and we'll ask you to, share your story. So, and I'm curious right now, just raise your hand if you do have a story about an onboarding experience that might make a good point. If you have a story about onboarding that you went through or that you heard about from somebody else, just raise your hand just to see if we have any stories. How does that look? Zoe says, yeah. A couple others. All right. All right. Keep those people in mind. Thank you, Lizzie. So you will have an opportunity to share those. So we want to start with a poll, as you always should in training. And so we will do that now. So thinking about wherever you work now, what's your current onboarding experience like? What word best describes it? I know it's a little artificial because it's just one word. Just to get us a sense of where we're starting from. All right, just another minute or so if you've not answered. Just your best choice of those words or other, I guess. All right, let's take a look at this. So a lot of information, which I think is probably the understanding of what it's supposed to be all about. Overwhelming, a close second, because we do have a lot of information to share in onboarding, which can get in the way of all the other things we might want to do. Unfocus is up there too. Anybody, you two people, I know it's two people. Would you mind unmuting if you said other, and just what's your word? There's a couple of you that said that is other. Or keep it to yourself, but I was curious about those other two words. Okay. It's like drinking drinking from a fire hose. Yeah. I have heard that a lot, Melissa. So let's think about why we're talking about onboarding anyway. I mean, why are we talking about it? What's the point? Um, there's you have to really look at your why, I think, which your why for anything, of course, directs kind of how you do it or what you do during it. And I just wanted to point out, I mean, this is just statistics that I thought made sense to share with you. There's lots of statistics out there, of course. Onboarding really does impact retention, especially retention connected to early engagement with the organization, with the people, with the culture. Your early experiences really help you identify whether or not you fit into the culture of that organization. I love this little study that was done. Over half of employees would go above and beyond in their jobs if they had a good onboarding experience, which for me means they're truly connected with that place of employment. Um, and you can read those, all kinds of research that shows if it's done correctly, whatever the hell that means, there's a really positive outcomes. All the ones that you'd hope to have: commitment to the work, commitment to the organization, performance, lowered stress. And then that last bit, I mean, I'm assuming that the majority of us are dealing with retention issues with staff. Seems to be an issue. And 40% of people leave jobs due to lack of engagement or not fitting into the culture of that organization. And so that's why the emphasis that I wanted to put on this training today, and put on onboarding itself, I guess. One of my colleagues, Dr. Drury, who used to live in Long Beach, as a matter of fact, we've been working at camp a lot lately on retention, and she just pointed this out one time, and I thought it was important to mention it. It's retention, of course, is a huge issue, and onboarding is your first chance to have something to do with that, or to make it useful as far as retention goes. And so I think it just needs to be, I think it drives us to make our onboarding process purposeful, and not just something to get through to move on to the next step, if you will. And so I want to really start talking about comparing and contrasting what an onboarding process could look like. And I think a lot of us have experience with that transactional way our onboarding is done now, where it is about getting all those forms signed, make sure you read the policies, sign up for this. It's time to, see what kind of insurance you want to have, all those kind of things. And at least in my experience and in the people that I've talked to, a lot of them, it's trying to get it done as quick as possible so we can get to the actual work. And what I'm hoping to kind of have you think about is transforming that system, to that onboarding process, to one where it's more about connection, and it's across functional, it's across the agency or the organization. So it's not just here's how you do your job kind of thing. And then perhaps a big leap for some of us is that rather than, our onboarding takes 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever it takes, but to think about it as more of an ongoing process. So if you think about transactional or transformational, that style of onboarding process, put into chat which of those two, transactional or transformational, would you consider your current onboarding process? Again, just curious, not looking for any particular answer. A little bit of both. A lot of mixture of both. Great. Perfect. Lovely. Beautiful. All right. I think we're in the same place for a reason, maybe. Thank you for that. So here's the differences, I think, between a transactional approach and a transformational approach. That first question, when you're thinking about designing onboarding right now, I think you're thinking often, a lot of us, what do a new staff person, what do they need to know? Which automatically leads you to compliance kind of things and facts kind of thing, all that. And transformational really asks a different question. What do we want a new employee to feel about working there? Does that make sense? And I think it's actually, if you think about it in that way, what do they need to know versus what do we want them to feel? I think it's a big shift, and you get a different answer. If you're designing based on that question, the design of your onboarding process is going to be pretty different. And so I'm curious, again, in chat, if your fingers are still working, this is a broad question. I'm not looking for an answer. Think about your organization. What would you want a new employee to feel? Put that in chat. What would you want a new employee to feel? Supported, that they have a purpose, welcome, comfortable, included, a lot of support, belonging, a lot of connection, a lot of support, a lot of welcome. Beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I think we're on the same page. Beautiful. Um, yeah, we're going to come back to whether or not they're aligned with the culture of the organization, because that's a big, it's a big thing as far as them staying there. So I just want to give you an example. Just imagine, actually, to close your eyes if you're that kind of person, and I won't know if your eyes are closed or not, but just imagine that your first week on a new job included a personal welcome note from your manager, coffee with your team, maybe off-site, and you're shown exactly how your new role makes a meaningful contribution to the agency as a whole, versus a week of filling out forms and watching training videos. Can you feel the difference? And I'm curious, I really am. And so put in chat, would this change of focus be a big shift in your workplace or not? If you change from how do we want them to feel to what do we want them to know, would that be a big shift? Yes or no? Into chat. Just curious. Hmm. Beautiful, Jacqueline. I saw that. Great idea. Come on in. Welcome aboard. Now let's get out of here and go eat lunch someplace. Um, just kidding. Although, depending on what your office looks like, maybe that is a good idea. So it seems like what we're going to talk about today is going to be useful to people. So you know how in training you write down something. I think people still do that, right? Could you show your writing utensils? Everybody have a writing utensil? Beautiful. Thank you, Jill. Sometimes you write down something in training, and it's the one thing that sums up everything that you learned that day. This might be it. Not that you're going to leave, but I think this is powerful. Plus, it's football season. It's where people decide if they're on the right team. Does that make sense? Somebody new, a new hire is coming in with a big question. And that question is, am I in the right place? Am I in the right place? I have to share this story because it was really my first experience with onboarding, if you will. I got hired at this place. I live in North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina. And I got hired by this little university affiliated program, about 20, 25 employees, I guess, from PhD people down to case managers and support staff, that kind of thing. And they did cutting edge, really, truly cutting edge therapeutic foster care kind of programming. And so I go in there on my first day. I already interviewed, they hired me, and here I go on my first day. And I come in and they go, Bonnie, who's going to be my boss, she's running a little bit late this morning, but come over here and just grab a seat over here in this area. And, I sat down on the couch and there's a coffee table in front of me. Like there's a big book on it, big like photo album. And so I'm thinking, oh, okay, wow, there's pictures of foster kids and foster parents in here. And I open it up and there isn't any foster parents in there. It's a photo album of Far Side cartoons. Like not the book, but cut out, hundreds and hundreds of cut out Far Side cartoons. And I go, I like Far Side. And then the director actually came into the office where I was at and, wanted to meet me and talked about Ohio, which is where I had just moved from. And At one point, he glanced out the window, and again, remember, it's a little organization. So there's out in the parking lot, there's a new vehicle, which was mine, which was a pickup truck. And he said, "Hey, is that your truck?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow." So we're about an hour away from campus, and we often have to go up there and get, furniture and supplies and things like that. Boy, that's nice to have that available if that's ever available. That's really good. And then he left. And then one of the support staff was there, waiting, doing work while I was waiting. And she said, "Hey, while you're waiting for Bonnie, come on over here." And she was stuffing envelopes to recruit foster parents and, folding up documents and putting them in these envelopes. And she goes, "Here, help me with this." And she showed me, what goes in there, which of the documents go in there and how to fold them to get them in the envelope and everything like that. And so that was my first 10 minutes in this, in my new job. And just from that little story, put into chat, what did I learn about where I was going to work for the next 26 years, let's say? What did I learn just in that 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe? What kind of place is it? Yes. Everybody pitches in, all hands on deck. We help each other. Unclear job description. We didn't get into that yet, but good point. Yeah, people are interested in each other. It's a little, yeah, that what the job entailed, besides what I learned in the interviewing process, we didn't get into it yet in the first 5 minutes. They needed me. They needed my truck. Jacqueline, let's be brutally honest. Which by the way, did happen. We did haul some furniture in my little pickup truck. Friendly but disorganized. Okay, I'll own that. There's some humor involved. So going back to that culture fit, it really fit. Obviously, I stayed 26 years, and it definitely fit my way of wanting to work together. And so you think about this as your guiding focus, if you will. How soon can you help a new staff person, a new hire? How soon can you help them answer that question? Am I in the right place? Right. Um, as you know, I mean, they talked me up a little bit. I do a lot of training, and as you all probably know, every training is now required. I'm not sure about California laws, but in North Carolina and Colorado, every training is required to have an alliteration of some sort in order to put the training on. And so this is my alliteration here: connection, clarity, and culture. And it's these are principles that really guide you to create an onboarding process that is not just getting them on board, but it creates meaning for them. It allows them to answer that question: am I in the right place? And connection, of course, refers to those relationships that we develop at work. And again, not just to your team. I would really ask you to think about not just your own team, but the whole organization as a way of helping to break down barriers or those silos, but also to help create from the start those kind of networks that help information be shared across programs. And then clarity is really just ensuring, like somebody mentioned in the chat, being sure that they know what their new job is, and at a tremendously deep level, but also any kind of related expectations they have. So being clear about that. And I thought this was interesting. You probably know Daniel Goleman. He said this recently: in a world of uncertainty, layoffs, AI disruption, new employees are looking for stability, clarity, and purpose. And onboarding is the first test of whether they're going to find it here, which I thought was pretty powerful and makes sense to me as I talk to people that are going through this time of uncertainty. So then the last one, which we'll go into a little bit, or to a great degree, is culture. And again, that new staff person fitting into the culture of an organization is incredibly important, incredibly influential in whether they're going to stay for a while. It's hard to actually, if you don't feel like you belong there or you fit into the culture of a place, for whatever reason, it's pretty hard to stay in that job, honestly. And I want to be clear when I talk about culture, the research and everything, they talk about culture and climate. And the distinction they make is culture is that the way we do work here. That's my definition of culture, with the way we do work here. And for example, do we talk about successes and failures? I mean, in my experience with organizations, if there's a child death or if there's a serious mistake made, there's lots of meetings, lots of meetings. It's pretty rare for me to come across in a group that also talks about when they have a big success and have meetings to talk about how they did it. Okay. A huge one, if you talk about psychological safety, is do they have a culture where we can ask for help? And that's a nice example and tells you a whole lot about that organization. And then climate is how it feels to work here. How it feels to work here, right? Does it feel supportive? Does it feel stressful just walking in the door? Does it feel fun like an old job I had? Does it feel like you're going to be isolated in this new role? So I just want to be clear that when I talk about culture, it includes both of those things: how we do things here and how it feels to work here. And then if you think about culture, just read these 5 characteristics, if you will. That's probably not the right word, but take a look at those. So, the question is, how does one learn how things are done here? If you look at this, it kind of describes how it's done. There's a lot of behaviors and a lot of practices, if you will, in these pieces of culture, which means that we really learn culture by observing and interacting with people, which is one of the things we'll come back to, but which is one of the things that makes doing a lot of your onboarding virtually pretty difficult as far as getting a sense of the culture, right? So now I want to get into this. It's kind of an overview. I want to get into this a little bit more deeply and talk about building that connection and really focusing on that connection. My mother actually did say this to me one time: you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? And she did not say this, that's just a stock image, but it is said quite a bit, right? I wanted to have you see that quote because there's a human bias that we all have called the primacy effect. I'm sure some of you know it. And what it is, it's a cognitive bias that where the first piece of information we encounter in a sequence is better recalled than later information. It really does explain that first impressions really stick with people, right? And think about that concept that people will remember how it felt right at the beginning of that job, right? They're going to really remember that. That's that story I told you about my first day at my old job. That was 41 years ago. Just to, you can do the math if you want, but that's 41 years ago. And I remember every moment of that first day because of how it felt. So again, remind, instead of asking what does this person need to know, what do we want this person to feel? And so again, moving away from the things that they need to know. I'm not saying that we get rid of that. We can't. And timing, focus, all those things, we do have some choice in. And so transformational would look like, who do they need to meet? Who's their mentor going to be? Meaningfully introduced to their team, not something just fly by, fly by introductions. And experiences, keep that in mind, experiences that reinforce their decision to work there. And again, I mean, you decide, you have your own parameters to think about, but think about, I remember that job that I told you the story about. The onboarding process was 1 day. My onboarding process in my current job was 1 week. And I work for a university. Think about all the things that could have been done. And so I really want you to think about making it more of a 3 to 12 month process rather than a 1 week process. I'm curious about that too. What's your onboarding process length? Put that into chat. How long does it take? About 90 days. Beautiful. Maria. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, beautiful ideas. The 30, 60, 90-day check-in. Lovely. Okay. A lot of variety, and I'm really pleased with the length. Okay. Um, so I'm going to ask you a chat question, and we're going to do this a little bit different. So let me tell you the instructions. So I'm going to ask you to put in your answer to a question, and I want you to type your answer, but don't hit enter. Don't put it into chat yet. Just type your answer, and then when I say go, then we'll all post it at the same time. Does that make sense? All right. So here's the question. I don't have an answer to this. I'm not looking for an answer. This is just whatever you think. Who would it be mandatory to meet face to face during onboarding? So you have a new person. Who would you make it mandatory? It was up to you, who would you make it mandatory? Don't press enter yet. Who would you make it mandatory that they meet face to face? Okay, now enter. And take a look at what people were thinking. That's the whole purpose of this. Take a look at the rest of them. Elizabeth covers a lot of territory, and I think that's wise. I might have said it, you know how you think of a pet peeve all the time, or it sticks in your mind. What I'm reminding with some of your answers here about meeting the CEO, meeting the executive director, that kind of thing. I just finished working a couple months ago with an organization for a year, had a year-long intervention with them. And right towards the end of it, just in passing, I someone brought up that they had been in the agency 2 years and they had never met the director. And this was an agency of, I think it was like 70 people, not this huge, not this huge place. In 2 years, their director had not met this person. I struggle with that. I really struggle with that. So I'm loving what I saw in the chat about the importance of meeting everyone, is not everyone, but meeting people from the top on down. We are back. Here's my, I think when I said we're going to do like 10, 11 chats, I miscounted. Here's another one. So you just you read and you heard and discussed. Good, Jessica. You heard some great ideas. You saw some great ideas. I want you to put into chat, what's the best idea you heard that you don't already do in your onboarding, just to see what stood out for people. What's the best idea you heard, whether it was in the handout or you just heard people sharing how they do things? That's one that you don't always do. Yeah, I like to coffee. I like coffee, so I love the coffee passport thing. We are a coffee based culture, is what I'm sensing. I'm not saying I'm not a part of that culture and one of its leaders, really. Coffee passport is one of the ideas listed on the handout, Miss Louisa. I don't know what particular page or anything. Oh, I love that. Who said that? Melissa. That's really nice. All right, think about connection and think about, do I fit here in this organization? And then one of your activities is um, the new hires can ask people questions, current staff questions along the lines of, what do you like about it here? Or whatever other questions you might have. Just think about how that really gives them information right away. All right. So the last thing I want to say about connection is, and again, I'm influenced by what happened to me in my last long-term intervention. Um, the director has to make the effort to see somebody face to face and meet them. They just, I get why they might not, and I think it's so important. And to have a meaningful conversation with that person. Think how powerful that can be. You're the director. Oh, wow, you care enough to talk to me on my first day of work or during my onboarding, and I'll never see you again, maybe, because it's so big. But then you have a conversation with me about what I'm passionate about, what I'm hoping to do with my career, that kind of thing. Um, if you want people to stay, that's a powerful thing. All right. Let's talk about breaking down silos a little bit. Are silos within your organization an issue or not? Yes or no? Put that into chat if you would, please. Are silos an issue where you're just not talking to the other people in the different departments? Ooh, Ruthie, I'd like to have more talk about that. And see, okay, all right, this is helpful. Yeah, yeah, Susan, size makes a difference for sure. My organization funding, depending where your funding comes from, kind of dictates who you interact with, that kind of thing, which some sense of that. I mean, some of that makes sense, I should say. Okay. I think it's worthy enough to really be thinking about and making, thank you, Christy, and making, I'm going to say, constant efforts, to copy Christy, make constant efforts to break down those silos. There's a lot of, the advantages are incredible if you're able to do that. So I have to show you my favorite. So this is my favorite slide of the show. So breaking down silos. So I just Googled, give me a picture about breaking down silos. And there it is, blowing up a silo. And I said, okay, you're in. So here's here's what it's all about, or the kind of the foundation of, if you are going to try and break down silos, which I'm going to say, please try. One, learn about other people. Who are they? What do they do? And anytime you hear me say, learn who people are, it's not, it's a little bit about the job, I guess, of course, and it's more about, who are they? What are they into? What have they been doing? Where'd they grow up? All that kind of stuff. That's my favorite question. Where'd you grow up? Because it tells you something. Put in the chat where you, no, kidding. And then the second goal is, they need to understand the big picture. Okay. They need to, if they're going to decide and if they're going to answer that question, is this some place that I want to be? It's going to have to be include the big picture of the organization and what they're involved in. And then you're breaking down silos has everything to do with feeling connected across the board. And one of the rationales for doing this, by the way, is think about how many of your people, maybe you, probably some people on this call, started in one program and now work in another program. So they're going to, some of us are eventually going to do that. So let's figure out how we can do that. Who's got, this is one where I'd like to have somebody unmute and actually answer this question. Just share a little bit. We don't have a whole lot of time, but share a little bit. Who's got an onboarding process that helps break down silos? That part of the process really helps break down silos. Miss Zoe, tell us about how you guys do it.
Well, so one of the things that happened when I initially got hired was I was given a list of supervisors of other programs within our behavioral health branch, and I was asked to go and meet with them. Somebody facilitated setting up the meetings, which was really nice. My direct supervisor was the one that set them up, so I wasn't scrambling to try and figure all this out. And then I just had like a 15 to 30-minute sit down with all these other little departments isn't the right word, but all these little kind of mini groups within our branch. And got to meet people. And actually, we're kind of building on that. We're about to hire more staff here where I work. And so I took the list that I got, but we added to it, heads up to the couple people I see in the call from our public health branch. But I added supervisors from public health because in our county, behavioral and public health share a building. And we're so interconnected. I don't know why we weren't already doing that. So yeah, I'm going to be having our new people meet our supervisors, but also public health supervisors.
Beautiful, beautiful. Somebody else raised their hand. Lizzie, you want to share?
Yeah, I was just going to really quickly say that one thing we've started doing, or what we realized is for our orientations, we did kind of an intro to what public health is, but not as much what our public health department is. So we have like activities where we can, it's kind of like a fill in the blank sort of thing, but you can really see the programs we have, the services that they offer, and how your program can connect with their program.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, like a map of all the interactions. I love that. Okay, good. We're not going to do this now tonight. When you go, as you're processing this training and reviewing everything this evening at home, you can look at pages 4 and 5. Actually, let me see. No, never mind. Look at pages 4 and 5. We do have a little bit of time. He says, hopefully. Just take a look at those pages and think about those ideas that you see and make it your own. How would you tweak it to make it your own? I have to be real honest, I do coaching in organizations, and silos is just quite the barrier. And it's a rare thing when they're not in play. So you have to be real conscientious about it too.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
Melissa had her hand up and she lowered it, but I saw in the chat she posted having staff do a scavenger hunt that requires them to learn about roles, departments, and learn office trivia. And I feel like I immediately know a lot about Melissa's work culture.
Say what you think you know now.
Well, because so I know that they do value getting to know and not silo, right? But they also value some fun because scavenger hunts are fun, I think.
Yeah. It's a delightful way to do it.
And depending on the office trivia, like, you could say who got married in Cancun, who did this, who did that. And yeah, anyway.
Thank you, Zoe. Yeah, we do some important things that are maybe policy based, like where could you find the AEDs and the first aid kits, stuff that they need to know, but also things like how much does a bottle top cost, who won the fantasy football what employee got recognized last year for different stuff, which doors set off alarms if you go out of them,
Excellent.
which is almost
Excellent.
a new hire rite of passage. So we tried to, but we also, it's focused on getting to know a lot of our support departments because it's people you see every day, but you might not realize what they do. So our facilities, the people who help take care of the building, the people who greet everybody at the front door and get referrals, kind of the unsung heroes of people who keep us afloat.
Boy, so I love everything you said. And like those support staff, to have them in the trivia contest, right? So that you're
Yes.
having a real conversation with them. Maybe that is part of it, but
Yes. And we have them. One of the ones that I really enjoy is find the person who's worked here the longest. Because they've been here like almost 30 years. And so, and she loves it. She loves when we have new hires because she just gets to talk to them. So we try to make it as engaging as possible for everybody.
it's that is all about breaking down silos, but think about how much that does for connection. Okay, especially I love thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not just about, oh, what's your job? I mean, that's important. That's useful information. What's your job and how do I interact with you and that kind of thing. And tell me something about you. Or I noticed you got a picture on the wall of whatever. This just happened yesterday, so I had to share this. We have a in the Kemp Center where I work, we have a monthly staff meeting for the whole agency, and people volunteer. Somebody had this idea about 2 years ago to do something what we call insight scoop. And so you can do it any way you like. You have 5-10 minutes to let us know who you are, right? And so this lady who is one of the she goes all over the world. She's spoken to the United Nations about child trafficking. She's this, a little bit famous, if you're in that field, I guess, person. And so her turn was yesterday. Oh my God, just her background and all the connection, family that she has. And I'm going to say some crazy ass shit too. And to know her, because she's this lawyer, she's a lawyer and she looks like a lawyer. I don't know what that means. Prim and proper and everything. Oh my God. And she's telling this story. And at one point, she was talking about an aunt who at one point bought a lion. Exactly. And I did not see that one coming. I was focusing and I didn't see the whole lion thing coming. Oh my God. That's that kind of thing, to really know somebody at a personal level. She had some great stories. Anyway, it's the best thing we do in every meeting, and everybody has said that. All right. So now I want to point this out. It's a repeat of a point I made before, because that's how you learn. 6 times, they say. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Culture building starts on day one. Most of you are in California, so it's a California company. There's a lot of these to choose from, but this one I fell in love with. It's 3 minutes long. Put in chat what you now know about this company, or you might know about this company, in just 3 minutes by watching that video. What do you know? Where they are, that they seem to have a little work-life balance, they have a little bit of fun. It's really growing. Yeah, they don't take themselves too seriously. That's nicely put, Melissa. Yeah, what's it like here? What's it like working here? It seems like it's kind of laid back and kind of fun, right? Love it. Love it. So you learned your own things about it, and in 3 minutes, right? Now, my question to you is twofold. One, does anybody have like a introductory video to your organization? And number two, if not, where would you think it would be useful? Most of us don't. I get that. We don't. Where would you put something like that? I mean, during the process. Definitely for marketing, if you're looking for people. I love that idea. Yep, yep. Yeah, yeah, Jacqueline. Yeah, because people want to know who you are. Beautiful. And by the way, I'm saying this with a great deal of confidence. You have somebody in your agency who is talented and would love to make a little video like this. I mean, you can, and if you have money to hire somebody to do it, great. But I guarantee you have somebody. There's one of your questions. So, what's your hobbies? What's something you're really good at? What about video-based skills? What's that look like for you? Anyway, so in chat, what's the most important day on the job for a new employee? Go ahead, put that in chat. What's the most important day? I'm not supposed to ask a question that I'm expecting a certain answer, but I gotta say I am. Yeah, we don't need to drill it down too deep. Yeah, it's the first day. Curiously, does anybody have a story like that of the first day was every day? Okay, Lakeisha, you got me. Whoa, Stephanie, second day? Unmute and tell me about that. I'm shocked and amazed.
Just to be a little bit different, but also like the first day is really overwhelming. There's nerves, there's tons of stimulation, knowledge being thrown at you. So I feel like second day you kind of have like your head in the game a little bit differently.
Oh, what super point. Don't do it. Sorry.
This is Zendesk.
Sorry. I struggle with one thing sometimes. There it is. So I just want to run this by you a little bit. So thinking about day one or day two, Stephanie, you've got kind of convincing me maybe. It's not about HR. It's not about that person's direct supervisor. The responsibility for building a culture in an organization belongs to everybody. Okay, everybody plays a role in it, leadership on down. And it's just, I mean, well, let me say, I'm going to come back. This is important. If you don't know, you know this. Culture is how it's created as all the everyday tiny little interactions where somebody says thank you, where somebody holds a door open for you, where somebody says, listen to this joke, listen to this dad joke, right? That's how culture is built, those interactions. Again, since day one is truly important, having some kind of welcome ritual, right? Where it just makes somebody feel good that they made the decision to take this job. Does anybody have one that they're real proud of that they'd be willing to unmute and share? Some kind of welcoming ritual, how we make somebody feel welcome? Uh-huh. We have room to build then. There's in the handout, there's some examples about doing that. I worked with a part of an organization, the child welfare division, and the supervisor, the manager of that division made it a rule. Number one, this is a beautiful rule, and some of you might even think about doing it. You are required to take a lunch. You are not allowed to work through lunch at that organization because of how it impacts your well-being and your resilience. And several teams, not all of them, but several teams, because they were going to eat, they had to eat lunch, they decided to eat lunch together, which is a beautiful thing. And one of the things that several teams did was on Monday, everybody brings something different and they make a huge communal salad and they eat on the salad for 2 or 3 days or however good your refrigeration is, I guess. I don't know. But that, I mean, it's a beautiful example of how we're connected here. And it's child welfare. It's people that need to be able to back people up and support each other and be there for each other. It's pretty important. Yeah. Does anybody do any pre-boarding? Does anybody know what that means? So they're hired and there's a period of time, before their first day, and that's an opportunity, right? To help them be set up for success, help them be set up for on day one. And there's not a way to do it, but to, think about, help them know what to expect, like the schedule on the first day, give them a little interesting material that they can look over, send them, some swag if you got it, just get them excited about that first day. Does anybody do that, or send a new employee kit out to somebody before you even lay eyes on them? Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, I work just across the parking lot from the new position I was hired to. And so they gave me the opportunity to come over and ask people questions. And I spent an hour with some of the staff that I would be working with. And so I got to ask them about what they do and what I would do. And I knew that I wanted the position within 10 minutes, but I stayed for the full hour because I was getting along with people and getting to know people. And it was wonderful.
What did you hear in the first 10 minutes that made you so sure? I'm curious.
They talked to me about, so I'm a vocational counselor. We help people build skills to get jobs. And so
Yeah.
they talked about the meaningful connections that some of them had with the clients. And that was something I was really looking for. So they really did, they connected me to the meaning of the work that I was looking for immediately.
Lovely. Thank you.
The,
Thank you.
the
Thank
rest
you.
of it when I started was a little bit messier, but that part was kind of what brought me over. Yeah.
Boom. Thank you. Here's a suggestion I want to make. And if I could tell you to do something, I would tell you to do something, but I can't. Have that new, I could, but there's no power. Have that new person send out, they send to whoever, send to their supervisor or whatever, a picture and a little blurb about who they are that then gets distributed to all staff, so that when they see you the first day, you're new, and it increases the odds that they're going to speak to you. And don't have that blurb be just their bio, but tell us a little bit about you, okay? If you go on our website and look at my bio, the last thing on it says I have 3 kids and we all like to jump off of high rocks into water. That's pretty much how we spend our days. It tells you a little bit about my health insurance, I guess. By the way, that pre-boarding, one of the things that can happen there is they can do all the boring signing of paperwork before they show up, and that just kind of makes it a better day, I think. So you have some in the handouts, you have some ideas about that too. And so about that, that culture building. Does anybody have a great day one plan for their onboarding that they're really proud of, that they'd be willing to share a little bit of? Some of us don't. Anybody? Before today? Now you do. Now you got some ideas. Here's the last chat prompt. Ready? What is one ritual or tradition that your organization has that helps people feel welcome? Just put that in chat. What's one, just a ritual or tradition that helps people feel like we're glad you're here? Nice. We decorate their desk. Oh, banners. Yeah, there's some research I came across in getting ready for this about celebrating birthdays and work anniversaries. It's a big thing. You might think about it, whatever. It's a big thing. Michael Stanley, welcome basket with snacks and Tylenol, like not Tylenol, sorry. Headache remedies, I was going to say. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, Jill, very nice. Very nice. Okay. All right, so there, pages 6 and 7 talk about that building culture from day one, which is where it starts, whether you do it consciously or not, by the way. If you don't do anything to help them feel part of the team, part of the culture, then they're not likely to, and that's a message. So we want to share, because CalTrin is going to do something that's going to be very helpful to you, and Jessica is going to tell you about it.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the participants know, I briefly mentioned it in the beginning, that kind of think of it as a springboard from this conversation. My background is human resources, specifically training and development. So onboarding is my love language. And we'll be talking about, it'll be 90 minutes. And we're going to talk about how do you leverage CalTrin as a free resource and bake it into the first 30 and 90 days of your new staff member's journey. We're also going to talk about how can you leverage CalTrin as a way to develop a continuous learning environment for your staff. So I just wanted to make sure I could briefly mention that, and that information, if you'd like to register, is in the chat now.
Thank you, Jessica.
Mhm.
Yeah, take advantage of that. Oh my God, why wouldn't you? So a couple of things. There were some pre-training questions that were sent in. Excuse me. One of them was about using technology to deliver that initial kind of thing. There was some research. Did I put this in here? I might have. Yeah, there's some on that online onboarding. There's some research that found that kind of onboarding leads to a little bit less understanding of the job and the organization. I think in general, you try to, there's things that make all the sense in the world to have it be, online, and then make sure that's interspersed with lots and lots of personal, real human contact, and pets if you're allowed to have pets at work. There was another question about generational differences in designing your onboarding. I think, that'd be a long conversation, but basically, yeah, you pay attention to that and adjust your process, like I think you would adjust everything else when you think about, if you care about generational differences, which you should, so how things are communicated is going to differ a little bit, how much tech and what tech you use. Work-life balance is a kind of a big difference among some of the generations, and so thinking about that. So yeah, you incorporate that into it for sure. And then the last chat question I have for you, I promise. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, is this. What's the one thing you'll take back to improve onboarding in your organization? Yeah. Beautiful. I went too fast. Something about more coffee. More coffee and food. I'm going to say yes. Yeah, more support before. That's beautiful. Thank you, Maria. I think I love that. Center that question of how do we want them to feel? Good. You guys, there's some good stuff here. So in this group, knowledge in this group. So I hope you all come to the reunion, and we'll share those ideas face to face. So Jessica, would you send them the reunion information when you get a chance?
We sure will.
Okay, thank you. So last question. Does your onboarding process communicate you belong here, your contributions matter, and we're really glad you chose us? All right. I'm gonna leave you with that. There's the last pages of the handout there's 5 questions every onboarding program must answer. You might find that useful too. And as you're reading over those things tonight, just reach out with any questions, and I'll answer right away. Remember the 3-hour time difference. And I thank you.